All right, welcome to KUIU Facebook Live. Thanks for everybody tuning in today. It's our second event of the week. We wanted to do a recap, or I wanted to do a recap of the stone sheep hunt Brendan and I just got back from. Just talk about the hunt, the trip, the conditions we experienced, some of the gear we took, and just give you some tips and ideas as some of the things worked really well. We also tested some new product. Some of it worked great, some of it needs some work, but that's what we do up in the mountains, and that's really how we vet out new concepts and ideas, and talk a little bit about the overview of the trip, and again, kind of some of the gear, and then really want to open up for a lot of questions. I know we had a lot of questions come in the last event before I left. We didn't get to answer as many, so we're going to be open for questions. So type them in, and we'll answer as many as we can. So hunt was tough.
It was a tough hunt, tough conditions.
Yep.
A lot of people know British Columbia is burning up right now, so we had unusually hot, unusually smoky, low wind, which means bad visibility. Stone sheep are all about glassing. You know, you can't walk them down, you got to glass them up. And we ran into a lot of hot, smoky conditions. Very buggy down below. And a lot of the rams most of the sheep we think were down low. You know, it was just tough.
Or just not moving.
Yeah, just
buried in the rocks. Yeah, it was. And it was different. You know, doing a lot of northern hunts. Even the stone sheep hunt we did a few years ago with Greg Williams, it was on glaciers. In BC, where we're hunting, it's a timbered bottom. It's thick, lots of timber, and the sheep are living above timberline. And so for us, it was great because we loved to backpack hunt. Normally, it's a horseback area where they're traveling lots of distances, getting to positions where they glass up high, and then making a move on a ram once they see it. We did just the opposite. We took our backpacks and backpacked and got up above timberline. And a lot of the time we're at 6,000, 7,000 feet, and above where there's any springs or water. We lived off a snowpack. Like Brendan said, it was we had decent conditions, although it was hot the first few days. And you killed your ram on day 2.
Yep, 5th day I was there, day 2 of hunting.
So you got it, Brendan got there early, went in, scouted, and found a ram, watched him, finally felt comfortable with the size and the age, and made a move on him. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, on the first day I got in the mountains on day, I guess would be the second day in, and I came in 2 days early because when traveling up north, we had obviously cameramen, Jason, everybody was coming in. It was good to get somebody out in the field earlier because when you have 4 or 5 guys at the same time, you get weather, jam up. You want to be in there early. So I came up a couple days early, got in early, got lucky on the first day. We were in mountain spot. We rode in about 8 hours and then hiked another 6 to get in where we are, and ended up picking up 5 rams that were running together. 2 little guys and 3 pretty nice. Two little guys, 2 7-year-olds, and 1 pretty older ram, being a 10-year-old. And then watched him for 4 days, for 3 or 4 days in the evening of the
second day of the season.
Second day of the season. Yeah,
August 2nd.
Yeah, August 2nd in the evening. He was bedded down these ridges. He was in between 2 peaks, and I just positioned myself a couple hundred yards back in case the wind got bad, and just basically banked on him. He was going to do what he'd done in the morning, and he ended up walking down the same trail, came running down towards me, and ended up making a pretty fast move on him and shot him with my bow at 48 yards.
But a pretty unique shot.
Yeah, I got in between, it was kind of rolling, grassy stuff in between 2 peaks, and I snuck up on him, and he was in the lead coming down with the other 3 rams, and as I was getting up, I could see 2 backs, and I got lower and was cruising along, closing the distance. I got about 85 yards from the other 2 rams, and I looked to my right, and he had me, and he had broke off and come around, and I just got a range on him at 49 yards.
Facing you.
Facing me. He was facing a little bit right, looking at me at 49 yards, but the hill was disappearing over the top. All I could see was basically this much of him and his head. I got confident in the range I got on his head, and Fred Bear killed his stone sheep back in the 60s this way. And if your arrow's always going up and coming down after you shoot, so 20 yards in front of me was a hill, and I could see just enough of him to where I wanted to hit. So I just aimed at where I wanted it to hit, and it arced over the hill and hit him perfect. Took a double lung, got him in the jugular, and hit him in the heart. Down he went 50 yards, just like that.
Yeah.
So
amazing accomplishment. I mean, how many stone sheep have been killed with archery equipment? Not a lot.
About 130 have been taken with a bow in the last 60 years.
So, it's amazing.
Yeah, right place at the right time. Generally one of the hardest ones to get in North America, so it was awesome. Yeah. I mean, been dreaming about since I was a little kid, so it was awesome.
It was awesome.
Awesome deal.
I was hunting with kind of a 2-on-1 situation with Donald Trump Jr., and we went into a different mountain range. The guide had found a band of 4 rams, one good one, about 2 days before season. We rode in, 13 and a half miles the first day, spent the night, got up the first day of the season, backpacked up into it's kind of a small mountain range, and looked for that band of sheep, and we just couldn't locate them. We found 2 smaller rams that weren't legal, spent 2 days in there looking, and then found out that Brendan had killed his sheep, and he was coming back to base camp. So we pulled out of that mountain range, rode 13 miles back to base, and then the next day I got up and we rode another 13 miles into a new mountain range, area that's rugged, tough, really far in, and then backpacked there from the horses that evening until dark, and then hunted up the next morning up through a high pass, dropped our gear and equipment at a kind of a rocky saddle with snow, so we have access to water. And then that day we went out kind of across some ribbon cliffs, and we glassed back into this basin that we ended up calling Freedom Basin at the end of it for a good reason. And spotted 3 rams about 3 in the afternoon. It was hot that morning, and then thunderstorms came and it cooled off. The rams got up to feed, and one of them was just a hell of a ram, wasn't it?
Huge ram. Scott Alexander made a hell of a spot on it. Yeah. Down low, really dark ram, gray face.
And he's one of those rams you put the glass on, and you're like, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, weight down low, deep, hoopy, kind of everything you want.
Yeah, it was.
And it took us about 2.5 hours to get in position. We had to do a loop around. Storm came in. We got huge rainstorm, blasted with high winds, hail, going through cliffs to get there. And then it ended up being perfect. The wind was good. We kind of came over these rolling ridges and had them at 350. Then the other 2 rams were at 550. We couldn't have gotten closer, so it worked out perfect. Don made 2 great shots. Only needed the first one.
Yeah.
Got it down, and it was a cool moment. He was excited. We were excited. And that's one of the most beautiful stone sheep I think I've ever seen.
Great big ram.
Yeah. I don't have any pictures to show you yet. We're holding off releasing them until we're given the green light to do so. But Don, I tell you what, this is the first sheep hunt I've done with him, and he's the real deal, isn't he?
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see, and you never know how people are and,
no, you don't.
How they do, but
especially in those situations, you truly find whether they're a sheep hunter or not pretty quick.
He's a tough guy.
Well, and everything he went through before he went, I mean, he could have easily pulled the pin, and he wouldn't give up on the idea of going sheep hunting with us. And I remember the first day it was a big day, climbing with all the food the first day, and we get to the top finally get to the top, and I look over, and I'm like, I guess you can climb. Yeah. People talk about it and those that do it, and he was a joy to have on the trip, fit right in, and certainly tough, well beyond what I would have thought or imagined with versus our upbringing versus where he grew up, and you just learned a lot about him.
It was really cool, and no matter your political affiliation or whatever, but what he had to go through to get on the trip was the dude likes to hunt, because it was certainly a pain in the ass.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, there's just a lot of we jump on an airplane and fly out there. That does not happen for him.
No. I met him in Vancouver and met the Secret Service entourage and traveled north with them, and it's a lot of people.
You got to want to go to do that.
It was.
Yeah.
He was a joy to hunt with, and I know he had a great time.
Yeah, it was fun. A tremendous ram, just a huge sheep.
Yeah. And he had to leave to get back to deal with the stuff going on in D.C. and his business. But and then after we killed Don's ram, it got really hot, really dry, and we went 6 or 7 straight days, and we didn't see not another ram.
Not another ram for 7 days.
Using lambs to be out, the rams weren't moving, and it was, I think, the 11th day of the hunt. 6 days without seeing
last
sheep.
Full day of hunting.
Our last full day. We had covered this whole mountain range, and we actually looped back to look back in a section that we had looked at for a couple days, and went to this high point that we hadn't been to, and looked back up into these ridges across this valley a long ways away, and found 2 rams out on at noon, sitting out on a knob. And it's pretty funny. We came up with all these theories of why we weren't seeing rams. They were nocturnal. They were in the timber. They were buried in the rocks, and then they blew all of our theories, and we're sitting out on a grass knob at noon in the sun.
It was so hot. We thought they would go high. I mean, when it's super hot, they generally go high. But the one thing it was not was windy, and the bugs were ferocious down below, like horrible black flies and mosquitoes. And so we just didn't think they would go low, and I think that's probably what they ended up doing.
Or just stayed bedded in the rocks.
They were just hidden,
Those things, stone sheep. And these stone sheep in particular, because they're dark.
Dark.
I mean, when they're bedded, almost impossible to see. So we spot these 2 rams, close the distance to find out if they're legal. Fortunately, there's 4 others with them, 1 legal sheep. And we make a move all the way up and around, get in these series of cliffs where they're bedded, and or where the legal ram's bedded that we end up shooting. And he was straight down, bedded at, I think it was 180 yards. My rangefinder told me to shoot him for 115. But it was such a steep angle I couldn't get a good rest, so I grabbed the videographer's tripod and mounted my gun on it. We got him aged and figured out he's legal. But he knew something was up. He was looking uphill at us, and by the time I got my crosshairs on him, started to pull the trigger, he stood up and was going to walk over an edge. And I didn't calculate for the distance change because of the vertical, and I pulled the trigger, I had this crosshairs around his back, and it went over the top of him, and he took off on a dead run. And he was about 180 yards, as fast as a sheep can run.
He was moving.
He was moving. I got the crosshairs on his front shoulder and pulled the trigger, and ended up shooting him in the spine and knocked him down, and he went straight to the bottom.
Rolled all the way to the bottom.
Yeah. And that was about 2 hours of daylight left in the last day, so it was to find a sheep after not seeing sheep that long, getting in position, and then missing on the first shot. That'll check you.
It's a full experience.
Yeah, exactly. But we got done, and then that was a huge night getting that sheep out of there. We were down in a hole. I think that day we did, what did I say we do, 15.6 miles, 5,000 vertical feet in 16 hours that day.
Yeah.
Got back to camp, and then the next day we got up, did another 7 miles to get the sheep out. We were out of food at that point. We got to the strip where we needed to get out. They were hoping to pick us up that evening, couldn't get us that evening because of weather for the plains, and we ended up having literally to eat the sheep to stay alive. Called the base camp, had them ride food in to get it, and it got in about midnight just because we were starving. But it ended up being one heck of a trip.
Yeah, we got the full experience, and
Full experience.
you can hunt that many days and get one on the last day. It was awesome, and a great big ram, huge base, beautiful silvery,
Oh, he's awesome.
beautiful stone sheep. Like just it was.
Blaze, you have a
awesome.
picture of him?
I do. Stand by.
McCade, you got questions coming in yet?
Yeah, we've actually got quite a few coming in. You want to knock some of them out?
Yeah,
real
let's
quick?
take a question, and we'll get into some of the gear we use and some of the ideas we had around stuff that worked.
There you
And
go. Cool.
yeah, that's our sheep. And he's down in the bottom there. Yeah, beautiful sheep, and you can see how hard those sheep are to see. I mean, he is bedded. I mean, how many times we look over to check him, and you like know where he was, you couldn't see him.
I peeked over 3 different times, and he was, whatever, he was 170 or 180 from us.
Yeah, hadn't
and
moved.
I every time I knew where he was, and I could not find him until I'd come up like, where, there he is. And
You see his
he
orange
had us.
eye.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all you could see. They're
Yeah,
they're definitely the hardest sheep to spot. There's no.
And then
doubt
the
about
area
it.
we decided to go into is a low density area but that area has really good genetics for big
Yep.
rams. And we saw 3 legal sheep the whole hunt, not because the area isn't great, the weather was tough, and we chose a low density area to find bigger rams, and I mean, we killed all 3.
Yep, you got them all.
I like those averages. What questions you have?
So this one came in on Instagram from Western Backcountry Hunter, and he asked, Kodiak mid-October, what rain gear would you suggest?
Yukon.
100%.
Yukon. Yeah, you're hunting October on Kodiak, you're going to get
Brushy and
brushy and big weather. I mean, it's what we developed
yep.
Yukon for. Hunting Alaska, hunting brush. You're
I
going
don't
to
know if
want the
he's going on a
gators.
boat hunt or a float
Regardless.
hunt or whatever. Yeah,
100% Yukon for that.
Something that's going to beat you up.
Yep.
This one actually came in twice. Brooks Walker asked it, and then I can't find the other person who asked it, but Brendan, what kind of broadheads did you use?
I shot that one with a Grim Reaper. I generally use a big 2-blade head, but I was shooting the Grim Reaper on this, a mechanical, because sheep aren't quite as durable, and long range accuracy and
High
kind of
winds and
high
those
wind.
conditions, yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
Perfect. We'll cover one more for now, and
Sure.
then we can get into gear. But Joe Rissy asked, as a Scarpa employee, great to hear and see our products used and abused and trusted to the fullest. How did you like the new boots?
Perfect lead in. So tthank you. Brendan and I are biased because we worked. It was Brendan and I that went to the factory last summer, sat down with one of the owners of Scarpa, one of the family members of Scarpa, and they're really intrigued with the success we had in the high-end boots that we were selling into our market. We convinced them, if you really want to do well in the hunting market, let us design the perfect boot. And it was the first time they've ever allowed
yeah.
a retailer, we're a retailer, of them come in and design a boot that we only sell. And so we took a combination of some of the boots that are in their line to put together the 2 that we've talked about. But we both wore, because of the hot weather, the Rebel Ks. And I was amazed. It's the weight savings on it. You can feel the difference from like the Grand Drew or some of the other boots I've worn in the past. The breathability was amazing, especially to sit in the hot weather. I mean, your feet just don't get that sweaty in them and contain a lot of moisture. And then the traction was phenomenal, and the lack of foot soreness, because we were in rocks the whole time.
Yeah.
And carrying a lot of weight. We moved camp a lot, packed out a sheep with it. A lot of side hilling, none of it was flat. And I don't know how your feet felt, but normally on a trip like that, my feet get really sore and they just never recover. I didn't get that with this boot.
Your feet are drier. You're exerting, work is weight over distance. You're picking up less weight on every step that you're carrying. I mean, it's just
I don't know if you can zoom in on this, but so this boot I took out of the box in July and broke in. Did a lot of training. Did some training hikes with it, but where I'm training, it's hard packed dirt trails mostly. But this boot in the rocks, this is 12 days to 13 days in sheep country. You can see what it'll do to the tread of a boot and the rand of a boot. It's why you need a high performance, high quality product, because it literally, you can go through a pair of boots on one sheep hunt if you don't have a high quality Vibram sole. But I was amazed at the traction you get with this and the rubber content, because there's varieties of it, whether they want it soft or more durable for longevity. This is kind of the perfect balance between the two. But it's
probably the most amount of shale I've ever walked on ever on any hunt. I mean, everything was loose.
Nothing was
really heavy, porous, like very sandy.
Yep.
Just wears everything.
And I don't know
out.
if you run. Do you run Superfeet in yours?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so if you're buying this boot, I highly recommend, and we all do here, Superfoot. It gives you, the orthotic gives you just more support in your arch, and it gives you support when you're descending, when you're side hilling, and especially when you're carrying heavy weight. It keeps your foot in place and just gives you a more comfortable, better riding experience. It keeps foot soreness out. But really happy with this boot. If someone buys this boot and doesn't think it's the best sheep hunting boot they've ever worn, I'll give them their money back. It's phenomenal.
What do you guys wear size wise?
So I wear a 12. Okay. I'm always a 12. It's true to size for me. I'm
a 10 and a quarter. I wear a 44 Europe, so it's like 10 and I generally wear a 10.
You do custom size.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really true. It seems like this boot has a little more flexibility as far as width, because the lacing comes all the way to toe, and compared to like the Grand Drew's pretty wide. But the Shimano's is pretty narrow. This kind of fits in between. I've noticed that some of our customers with wider feet are able to get in this boot that previously couldn't get in like the Shimano. So it's a pretty good size mid-range fit on that boot.
The beauty of this synthetic boot for me is that it does not change size. Like on day 1, it fits like it's going to fit on day 10. It doesn't. You don't get the ever expanding, sucking it tighter, and all of a sudden you got your eyelets are touching at the end of the hunt. That
leather boots, you can't believe how much they'll change.
They're the same size
hunt.
the whole time, which is awesome.
That was good. Do you want to take another question real quick? We'll get some of the gear I have sitting here. We can talk about.
Let's do it. Grant Cobb asked, "How did the Peloton 240 vest work?" I knew that question was going to come up.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I get to wear it that much because of the temperature. Earlier in the hunt, I wore it because we had mixed conditions and some storms that came in. It was fantastic for me, really fantastic on this hunt because I wasn't carrying a jacket. It's got wind protection in the core, and that thing weighs nothing, packs up to nothing. We both ran the 97 hoodies. On this trip, it was perfect because you have those reasons. I mean, it can be still, even though it's hot, a little cool in the mornings, pulling that on and be able to hike in it versus going to like all the way up to the 200, which I carried, which is really almost too warm to hike in some situations. It was a perfect balance, I thought. Yeah,
we had so much sun. It was so hot. I mean, the one thing, we just got scorched. There was not a cloud in the sky for 7 or 8 days in a row, so we
and no timber to hide in.
Yeah, so I mean the hoodie was really nice.
Yeah, Brendan actually turned it inside out, and it became a sunshade for him. Yep. I thought that was a pretty good idea. So you had to put the fleece side out, and
it was hot.
It was. So some of the stuff that we brought that I thought would be good to cover. One, when you're hunting in rocky conditions, this thing it always blows me away how much I use it. So not only for sitting in glassing, which is obvious, but around camp, you're camped on shell, you're camped out on rocks. I carry this around, drop my knees on it. Whether I'm cooking, whether I'm getting out of my tent, getting dressed. And I push it between the frame and the bag like you do. And you always got it. And it's just such a useful tool.
I left one day and I walked a quarter mile, go back to go get it. Like I was not going to continue on with that. I knew it was somewhere, but yeah.
So the ice axe I bring, I was only one smart enough to bring it this year. And everybody that was with us used it at some point. But we used it to dig platforms for the tents. We used it to clear a platform for Don's sheep for pictures, my sheep for pictures. We also were living off a snowpack because we were above where quite a ways above where the springs were coming out of the mountains. And so for us, gathering snow that was pretty crusted up, this worked great.
I took 2 trekking poles, and I always, generally on every trip, I'll have one thing where I go, man, I wish I'd have brought that, and I wish I'd had one too. So.
And it just looks cooler than a trekking pole
it does.
Too. But it's such a useful tool. It always surprises me how much I use it and how many people that are with us, whether it's a guide or not, go, man, that is a useful tool. And they always kind of snicker when I ice axe, you're not going to see ice. That was great. Something we learned about snow. So I've done a lot of backpack hunting up high. I've lived off a snowpack in Nevada. What I learned from the guides up there was, and I never filter on sheep hunts.
Yeah.
You know, we usually drink it out of springs or fast-moving rivers that I've never had Giardia. I don't know if you have up there.
None of that time.
But the guides up there, we took snowpack, we melted it, and we filtered it. And what we learned is that the caribou and the sheep will, when it's hot, we'll get it, and we saw it.
Yeah, they
a
live
lot.
on the snow.
They'll live on the snow, and then you get feces and urine on it, and it's an easy way to get Giardia. I think both the guides have had it in the past by not filtering snow. So a tip for all of us is, if you're going to live off a snowpack in sheep country, filter it. Because I wouldn't have, and I probably got.
So how we got like 80% of our water on the hunt was big black plastic bags or the waterproof.
We use roll top dry bags.
Roll top dry bags. We fill them up as full as you can get with water. Leave them in the sun. Obviously, it was hot,
and let it melt.
It would melt, and then that night we'd filter it, and we had enough snow. And yeah, it was the animals living on the snow was crazy.
Yeah.
We snuck around on one day, and here's a cow caribou just relieving herself all over the glacier right in front of us. They're like.
Good thing we're filtering.
Good thing we're filtering.
Hey Blaze, you have that picture of us on the snow? Yeah, so this day was the hottest day we had. We gone out to Glass, and the wind stopped, and it was just sweltering. We had no protection. We were literally hiding under our trekking poles with jackets over the top, and then worked down the ridge and found the snowpack is actually where the caribou was relieving herself all over that. And we found snow, and we just dove in it. And you see how hot Brendan is. He was like,
dying.
Yep. We made snow cones. Some of the other items I brought and something I don't know if I talked about before I left, but I bring wet wipes, like all of us do. They're great not only for obvious reasons, but also just cleaning yourself up. You don't have access to water, cleaning cuts, and we'll talk about that in a second. But one tip I have on this, I don't know if I've covered, is I'll dehydrate my wet wipes. Because you're bringing 10 days worth of wet wipes, they're pretty heavy when they're wet. So I'll dehydrate them, then I get them on the mountain, I'll take a few out, wet them up, and then put them back in this. If you're into saving grams and ounces, like I am, all just kind of little tips. For the first time on a trip, I've needed first aid, pretty seriously. I don't know if you have that picture. Do you have a picture of Brendan's finger? Get the bloody one up, Blaze. Yeah. So we were going down this knife ridge on like the 5th day. Really steep, nasty, technical, scary descent. Brendan had his hand down on a piece of, it was a slab the size of a manhole cover of shale. So it was reasonably thick and really sharp. That thing slid on him and banged his finger into another rock behind it.
Caught me against it, like fast, like I thought I would.
Oh, it was quick.
Yeah, just instantly happened, and I actually.
Fortunately, I had gloves on.
Yeah, luckily I had gloves on, but I thought I lost my finger. It was that heavy.
Oh yeah, I thought you did too.
Yeah, and
you had the look on your face like you did.
Yeah, it was gnarly.
I don't know if you could what it shows up on camera, but it was not only cut on one side to the bone, but it was cut on the other side to the bone. And fortunately, I've carried first aid. I rarely ever have to use it. This time we needed it. Just as a tip, bring the good Band-Aids, bring stuff to clean it. We had Neosporin. We kept it uninfected, which was amazing to me for the rest of the trip. And it wasn't a clean cut. Normally we bring super glue so we could, instead of stitching, we can glue it. But it was because it was a blunt force trauma, it just blew the skin apart. Yep. We couldn't glue it, so we probably should have had.
Yeah, I ended up wrapping it up and just covering it in Neosporin and basically making a cast. I had athletic tape with us, had dehydrators or some of the wet wipes I would use every day and just cover it up. I basically, if you're not within 12 hours of getting stitched, there was not really much I could do. It was, I thought.
You weren't going out.
Yeah, I'm not leaving. So if I lose a finger, I lose a finger. But I managed to keep it clean. Doctor looked at it when I got back. Everything is pretty good, but definitely could have used about 7 stitches. So.
Yeah. Just as, like I said, I carry it all the time. And hopefully you never have to use it. We did on this case. The other thing is just these little storage bags we sell. I mean, they're so convenient. You can always find your stuff. You keep stuff organized. You keep stuff, and I like the small ones because you don't have to have one big bag with lots of stuff in it. So I carry a lot of these. Just wanted to talk a little bit about that. We need to sell this spoon. This is a Sea to Summit. It's a titanium long handle spoon. Highly recommend it for Mountain House. Keeps your hands clean.
Yep.
You get down on the bottom and clean it. They don't weigh anything. We spent quite a few nights in our headlamps. One night in a storm, the night coming out with my sheep. And you know, I talked about this headlamp before I went in, but just it reminded me how great this headlamp is because of how powerful it is and the lumens. And we had a rock mountain, literally, that we ended up calling it what, the Tower of Doom.
Tower of Doom.
Because there wasn't a trail on the backside, the other side was cliffs, and we had to come underneath rock that was just all broken shale. And yeah, you can kind of see the start of it there, Blaze, in that picture, the headlamp on. You on that? Mm-hmm. And that night, you know, we cut a trail across, but it was the only trail that existed at the elevation window across, and took us a while to find it. And having a really bright headlamp in those situations is just always reminds me how important
We'll
it
be
is.
packing that one next time.
Yeah. Brendan took my backup because the one he had wasn't powerful.
Faulty, yeah.
And I always bring a really good backup, not just an emergency backup, because if you need it in that country, it can save your life.
What's the name of those headlamps? We're getting a couple questions about it.
Yeah, this is the Petzl Now, and we sell it on our site. Don't buy it from anyone else, and then because it's not as good. And this is the Reactix. And both of these are, they have that reaction lighting to it, so it'll vary the lumens depending on what you're looking at. So as you drop your headlamp down, let's say, to look at something close, it lowers the amount of light that's coming out of it, and you raise your headlamp up and it blasts out more lumens to give you better visibility at distance, and it saves the battery that way. It's pretty amazing.
Both rechargeable.
Yeah, both rechargeable. I'll bring a backup battery to this, and then for a power source like I talked about, bring this large Goal Zero and then the smaller stick, and this combination stays with my tent. When I'm out hunting today, the smaller stick is recharged if I've used it, and that stays in my pack, so I got backup power. And then I'll put the Goal Zero panel on my tent like I did every day, and this is recharging.
Had plenty of power on this on.
Yeah, yeah. But it's as good a system I found that's lightweight and backpacking. One thing to note though, these solar panels don't charge quickly. So if you're planning like, hey, I'll bring a solar panel and a battery and I'm fine, bring another battery pack, because it doesn't put that much juice into your battery, but it does help put some back in every day. And then one of the products I tested that isn't out yet is the bullet carrying system, bullet loops on the bottom of our vinyl harness. This isn't available yet, but it'll be coming out at some point in the future. And it's all attached through Velcro, but such a great location for bullets. Out of the way, easy to grab, kind of a natural place to pull one out. That worked really well. We have some other attachments that we'll be doing on that vinyl harness in the future I won't cover today. But what else did you bring that you thought was useful?
You know, the bow holder on my setup was really handy, even packing the ram out, just keeping my, you know, it's such hard country that beats up your bow so much that anytime you can have, you know, your cams and your strings protected, the SFS bow kit is like, I mean, you know, the bow is even in 8 days from brand new to basically really scratched up, but nothing.
Blaze, do you have any pictures of the country we're in that gives people some perspective of what we're dealing with? Any questions you want to cover, McKay, that are coming in?
I knew this one was going to come in, but this one's in from Joe Flores. How did the new padded travel bag hold up?
Aha, yeah, cool. Good question. It was great. I mean, we struggle with luggage to get our stuff up and back, and that concept travel bag worked perfect. Size-wise was perfect. The amount of equipment full, still with KUIU stuff, was under 50 pounds. And I pack all my own food, as you guys know, so there's a lot going north. I brought that with a Teiku, the new 5,500 cubic inch Teiku bag, and that had my pack in it and boots. And between the two bags, it was perfect. Traveled well. I put the gun case on top of it, strapped it down, and rolled it right through the airport.
What was the total weight of your pack with 10 days?
So we weighed at the horses. It was 43 pounds.
43 pounds.
10 days
with water?
10 days of food, hydration bag not filled, but everything else, tent, sleep bag, 10 days of food, 43 pounds. Yeah. I think yours came in at...
I was, I brought the 95 Swaro scope and a big tripod, so I think I was right at 50.
Right at 50 with optics, yeah. And you brought the 95 Swaro?
95, yeah.
And that thing's awesome.
It wasn't enough. I didn't spot enough sheep.
We tried.
Yeah.
We tried. So do you have anything else you want to cover as far as questions, McCade?
Yeah, this one came in, and it was from Forrest Peck, and he asked, going out on my first sheep hunt next Friday in Idaho. I have great
Congratulations on the tag, Forrest.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I have great rain gear, but could use a set of clothing. If I could only afford one set of clothing, shirt plus pant, what should I get?
Our rain gear. No, I would, if you're looking for what to buy from us, you can never go wrong with the attack pant. It's our most versatile pant. It's our #1 selling pant. You want a more technical pant, Alpine's a great choice. Tiburon for this time of year is also a good choice. Is what Brennan hunted in.
I ran the Tiburon on this stone sheep hunt. I looked at the long-term forecast and said, it looks pretty hot. I'm going to wear Tiburon. And I was glad I did.
I kind of wish I had Tiburon. But if you want a knee padded pant with more pocketing, the Alpine was fantastic. I loved it on this trip. And then, the guide jacket would be something to think about, or some of our installation pieces. And I always recommend Super Down. If you're going to pick one jacket to buy first from KUIU, buy the Super Down because it can save your life and keeps you really warm, doesn't weigh anything, especially the new Ultra.
Awesome. We've got another one to cover. Bob Barkernard. What's your favorite mountain house?
Good question.
Great question.
Definitely not Chili Mac.
That's my favorite.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Remind me not to hike with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's actually banned
Yeah.
in my camp. No one's allowed to bring Chili Mac. I like the lasagna's awesome. I don't know if you guys had lasagna. The cheese sticks to your spoon, so it gives you something to do after you're done eating it. I like the stroganoff and the macaroni and cheese. I mean, really all of them are pretty darn good. I mean, there's a few better than others. Like I stay away from the chili, but
I go through phases. Sometimes I like the mashed potatoes and chicken. This hunt, for whatever reason, the chicken teriyaki was the one I think I had 7. That was the one I liked the best, the chicken teriyaki.
Don't worry, you don't have OCD.
Yeah. It's just
you like it, you love it.
Yeah.
And then the breakfast, I mixed it up. I brought some of the granola and blueberries on this trip, the Mountain House breakfast, and then a skillet, and I tried the biscuits and gravy, which I'm not a big biscuits and gravy guy, but it was kind of nice because it's got 600 calories in one bag.
I did blueberries, and I did the blueberries Mountain House every third day, and then basically every morning I did two things of oatmeal. I'm not a big breakfast eater, so I kind of have to force myself.
Not a big eater at all,
yeah.
Being a college wrestler.
Yeah.
And then I felt like my food mix this trip was about as good as I've ever done. I had 4,256 calories per day, including my Mountain House. But my lunch mix felt like I was hungry, but I wasn't ever starving, ever feeling like I was tapped as far as energy. And I think I had a lot of fat in my mix, in the calories per ounce mix this year, and felt pretty good. I'm going to put together what my food menu was. I also have a gear list from this trip. I'm going to give to McCade. We're going to find a place to put it up on the site, and we'll make an announcement of it and where you can locate it and download it, because I think it's really useful. The gear list for me keep me from overpacking primarily, making sure that I've got everything, but really it's keeping your pack light and not packing too many things, because it's easy to go, just throw that in.
I find that the last 10 minutes before I go and leave and head on whether it was on the horses or anything, like if I can keep something out of my pack for the last 10 minutes, my pack will stay light.
Totally. And we've been doing it so long, I always come back and go through my gear list and scratch off what I needed or what I would bring that was different. One other pretty cool tool, so I bought this new Garmin Phoenix 5 before I left on the trip. The UC Davis Human Performance Lab that we did our weight performance study, the guy said, can you bring something to track your distance, your elevation gain, descended, and then also your heart rate, and then we can take what we learned from the study and put it to a real test to look at the data that comes out of it. So I bought the Phoenix 5, wore a heart rate monitor the whole time, and then what's really cool about this program is it has a link to your phone, and then it gives you a calendar, and it can take you, and I don't know if you can see this, but breaks down each day. So I can go to, let's say, this is August 10th, and that day we did 13.71 miles, and we did 5,000 vertical feet in 15 hours. We were out from camp. It also has map, so it'll tell you where you went, and also you can have it in satellite format or just regular map format, and it breaks down some pretty cool data. So it tells you your average pace, your average speed. It tells you how much time you're actually moving, because we do a lot of glassing. So out of 15 hours, for example, we only move for 5.37 hours of it. And during that 5.37 hours is when we traveled that 15 miles. That particular day, like I said, we climbed 5,000 vertical feet descended 5,000 vertical feet because we came back to camp. And it measures your heart rate. My average heart rate was 107, high was 150 that day. And we're going to take all this data, give it to the Human Performance Lab, and break it down.
It was really cool every day because he'd come in and say, "How far you think we went?" And we were consistently low. I was kind of surprised. I was always way low on what we thought we did. Like I don't know, 9 miles or something, like 13.
Well, and the vertical was pretty impressive too. It's just neat to start to capture this data and try to use it to help, analyze weight, performance, and break it down so we have science behind what we do, which is always fascinating to me. So I'll keep you posted on what we learn from the lab. And the future of the studies, we close it out. There'll be a film about it, and we can cover it. So, any more questions you want to cover? Just open it up now at this point if people are still watching and interested.
Yeah. So Jonathan Souls asked, "What kind of tent did you use? 1 man or 2 man? I'm going on a 10-day hunt in Colorado, and I'm looking to buy a tent to use."
So for his hunt, I'd definitely recommend the tent I took, which is the Mountain Star. It's our tried and true tent that I worked on designing from the beginning. What I love about it is, it's a 2-person tent, but it's a tent. You got 2 vestibules, 2 side entrances, lots of space inside to organize gear and hang out in. For sheep hunts, it's nice because you might get weather in that tent for multiple days. To be able to move around, be able to sit up, it's just such a great tent. It's only just a little over 3 pounds. Freestanding, really good in high winds and even with some decent snow loads. Yep. And you took a prototype.
I took a shelter on this one just to confirm how much I don't like shelters on sheep hunts, to really drive it home. But I had a tension shelter, basically
a
like
prototype.
It wasn't floorless, but it was basically like a floorless shelter. And the problem I ran into is that in the kind of country we were hunting, there's so much loose rock, there's no solid ground. And so to anchor something that needs pressure both up and down, and when you don't have solid ground, I can't recommend it.
Yeah, there's also, unless it was dead level, which we never were,
Yep.
it's hard to get that to pitch right.
Yep.
And so you end up collapsing, your usable space gets taken in. And then you carried the floor and the bug mesh.
We had to have it.
And you have to have in that country, but it just ends up using space. And then the front entrance was challenging, I noticed as well. You looked like you had to do yoga to get in out of there.
Yeah, it was the reverse crab to get into it. And at the end of the day, the one night we got back, it was absolutely dumping rain as hard as you could dump. The one really big storm we got. And we had to set our tents up in the dark, and it just took way longer. And it was just, a freestanding tent is nice. You just pop it up. It's waterproof as it's coming up with the EXO.
Our design, it
pops open, and you can climb in it, and you're done. So I would.
But that's
I
how
would
we
go
learn.
with a freestander. I tested it. I gave it the full.
Yeah.
I went in with an open mind and came out, closed that chapter for me.
Yeah.
Attack gloves.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Saved my finger.
Yeah. And what I loved about them is, that what's great about the tack glove is the Pitarza leather has no liner, so it's right against your hand, so you got great dexterity. The more you wear that leather, the thinner it gets, but it doesn't ever wear through. And then the fabric on the back being just a single layer, not a soft shell, breathes really well. It was awesome. I wore it every day.
The dexterity is amazing. You don't have to
saved our hands in that country. Highly recommend it.
Awesome.
Anything else?
There's a lot.
Keep going.
Yeah, okay.
So Jeff Harrison asked, "Hi, bro. I know you."
Hey, Jeff. What's up, man?
I know you
Right
do a lot
on.
of
It's good to hear from
physical
you.
Preparation leading up to your hunts. How did you feel on this hunt? And are there any adjustments you'd make to your physical preparation in the future?
Thanks, Jeff. Great questions. Yeah, I train, as you know, year-round for sheep hunting, and depending on the time of year, changes up what I do. And I'm always tweaking. I'm always playing around with the different types of training. I've learned a lot from the Human Performance Lab at Davis, the first study we did a couple years ago about interval training and how often to do it. And one of the challenges I have is I like to train, so I have a tendency to overtrain going into a hunt. I've gone into hunts where I've got tendonitis or AT bands inflamed because I've just overdone it. I felt like I really got enough rest in between really hard workouts on this trip, before this trip, and I felt as good as I've ever felt going on the trip. And I think a lot of it was really heavy interval training, quite a few long workouts with a heavy pack, getting up to 90 pounds and hiking. Like I did some heat training, which was freaking great on this trip. Hiking in the middle of the day was over 100 degrees with 90-pound pack for 3 hours. Just kind of getting yourself set up so that hard days training aren't that different than the hard days on the mountain. And it really paid off on a trip that I needed it.
Yeah, I went into it dealing. I got a little injury in one of my hips, and I kind of took the slow on this one. I probably trained less intense on this than I have for any hunt, and I actually felt pretty good considering, I mean, my
I mean,
boots were
Brendan,
great.
you always can climb. So
But my it really forced me to dial my gear in. Like my pack was as light as it's ever been. I actually took a 5200 on this trip because I was just like, I'm going to go as light as possible, and I felt great.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I think we'll do one more.
Sure.
Awesome.
Good questions, by the way. Jeff,
questions.
I hope you're doing well, buddy. Thanks for the questions.
Let's see. So let's cover this question from John D. Martinez. What packing system did you use for this hunt?
Packing system, as far as
I would think he's asking
Backpack?
about the pack that you
yeah,
used.
I ran a prototype pack. It's essentially taken the Ultra 6000, and we put side pockets on it like we have on the Icons, so you can put spotting scopes in the sides or store other gear, and then added some pocketing on the inside, which the Ultras don't have any, and kind of up on the front end of the inside panel, so you unzip the pocket and it's on the back of there with. Sean designed it with kind of vertical zippers. It was really nice. I think it was a perfect balance for me on the trip. Size-wise was awesome. I don't need a 7,200-inch pack on that hunt. And then just kind of the storage and the mix for me was about perfect, and it's light. It's it's not much heavier than the Ultra 6000. And I ran the Icon suspension for packing heavy loads on this trip, and that bag, and I loved my setup. It was great.
Yeah, I ran the Icon Pro 5200, and what I really liked on this trip that we used a lot since we were camped and would move was running that pack lidless.
Yeah, I did the same thing,
and I really liked that feature to be able to. Because I was, when we were moving camp, we were about 50 pounds. As our food went down less, and then during the day I was hunting with about 26 pounds total, which was
and that
really
pack
nice.
has the shroud that folds over and clips in, which is I want to add to
nice
the
and
pack
clean, and it was great.
Yep. Yeah, it was good. Let's get one more. We'll wrap it up.
Okay. This one came in a couple times about water filters and what system you use for water.
Yeah, well, we used a pump up where we were just because that's what the guide had. Normally, I don't pump anymore. Platypus makes a gravity-fed hydration or filter system that's awesome. I've also used Kadin makes one that's a little bit bigger bag. If you haven't used gravity-fed systems, they're awesome. It's essentially a big bag. You scoop up the water, you close the top, you hang it up, and it has a hose that comes out of the bottom of the bag with a filter. Sometimes the filter is either in the bag or inline in the hose, and it runs out pretty quickly and has a cinch, and I never pump water anymore.
Yeah, it was, I think we figured it out the one day. We basically, in 10 days, both drank about our water weight in water.
Yeah.
I mean, we were going through we were melting a lot of water, we were filtering a lot of water, and was it Ketadine we used? And it was about done at the end.
Yeah.
It was about done.
We blew up the filter, we just clogged it up. And I brought 2 3-liter bags, one as a backup and for a camp. That's also something I want to bring up is having an extra 3-liter bag was awesome on this trip because we'd fill it up if we hit a spring, and having extra water bags to melt water or store water was important on this trip.
These kind of trips, you just never know what you're going to get. If you just told us we're going in there, you're going to see 90 degrees in northern British Columbia, I'd have said, I doubt it.
Yeah, exactly.
But we saw 90 degrees.
Yep.
I mean, it was hot, used a lot of water. I mean, you got to be prepared for it all.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
You want to do one more?
Sure.
Okay.
These are great questions, guys.
This one's coming in from Instagram, from Dominic_Predator. Did you have any hard lessons on this sheep hunt?
You always learn a lot. I mean, and lessons come in several different ways on a trip like this. One is just the mental fortitude to stay positive, stay patient, and stay believing. It's when you go that many days, and I mean, we were in amazing sheep country. I mean, it's pristine sheep habitat and country, sheep trails everywhere. We knew there were sheep there, and we couldn't find them. And for us, that's rare. I mean, we're really good at glassing. We're really good about pulling country apart. We've got the best optics in the world. And you can't find sheep. The conditions are miserable. It's hot. You're exhausted. And you just have to have that mindset of, we're going to get it done. You got to believe. You got to believe. And I remember we woke up the last morning, and Brennan tells me the story. What was the story Willie told you? And it was just so true. I mean, it happened to us.
Yeah, a buddy of mine who guided, he went 9 days in a row to the same base, and it was like a 10-mile horseback ride. And the last day they got up, and he said, "We're doing it again."
Well, his client asked him, "Are we sure we should do the same thing?" Yeah. We've done it 9 days in a row; it hasn't worked out.
He said they're going to be there on the 10th day. They rode in. There was 9 rams in the base, and he killed them.
It was the same thing. I mean, you just don't know with stone sheep, especially because you can't find them very easily. And I mean, I learned a big lesson on that one: is you just got to keep grinding, keep grinding, keep grinding. And I never thought we wouldn't get one. I mean, it was noon before we found one the last day, and I still believe that day we're going to locate something and get it done. But at times it was like, man, maybe we should just pull out of here. Maybe it's done. Maybe this is going to work out.
Yep.
And it can happen last minute like it did for us.
You got to hunt on the last day as hard as you hunt on the first day,
Yeah.
and it'll keep working out.
And I think a lot of that comes to prep, making sure you got enough food, your food's good. I mean, and we learned a lesson. I mean, I always bring my own food because it's something I control. Our videographer, Matt, that filmed this hunt, we told him. He didn't listen to us. Not that Quentin or
You look really
Gunnahoe
skinny,
doesn't do a good job, but they don't do a lot of backpack hunts. And
Yeah.
they packed his lunches, and he was about done with his food about before noon every day.
He didn't complain, but I could tell he was starving.
He was starving, right?
Yeah.
And those are the variables and controls that you can take control of. And I always tell people, control everything you control in these hunts because there's a lot you can't.
Yeah.
And it lets you get to that last day and lets you
Yeah.
stay mentally strong in conditions that are tough or if the hunting's tough. Or like the last day coming out. I mean, it was as hard a day as I've had in the pack. It was nasty.
Yeah.
But yeah, good questions.
Yeah, awesome questions today.
Well, thank you. I hope this is helpful. Like I said, we're here for all of our customers. You guys have any additional questions, email them into customer service. We have gear experts. You can get a hold of Brendan. We'll build gear lists. We want our customers to be successful.
Yeah, we're going to put this up, all the gear list and the food prep on.
Yeah, I'll get it put together.
Yeah.
It'll be up sometime next week, and
Yeah.
we'll make an announcement about it. But we always learn a lot on this stuff.
Yeah, thanks for checking in.
Yeah, I appreciate the interest, and thanks for tuning in.